first thing was like, I just sent it to everybody I know. Well, I just, I was like, I was just dying.
Yeah.
Dale had some good jokes, but then he said, what is that, a pooping young? A 140 pooping young? The HUNTR Podcast is brought to you by Deer Grow.
Man, it's almost food plot season, Jared, and Deer Grow is one of those products that has really changed the way that we plant food plots and the success we've seen from them.
No doubt. I've been, trying to plant food plots my entire whitetail hunting career, which is a little shorter than yours, but the minute that I started, or that I realized that I could get Deer Grow back into some of these remote plots where I couldn't get lime or fertilizer, especially in the 50-pound bag, format. Mm-hmm. So everything was changed. I could get into these spots moving forward with a backpack sprayer, and that's since escalated to these 40 or 60 gallon sprayers, and we're doing upwards of 5 to 10 acre food plots just with Deer Grow and having phenomenal success.
Yeah, and I mean, with the price of fertilizer, lime, diesel, everything this year, I mean, what better way to get in there and grow a successful food plot at about a third of the cost? Check out Deer Grow at deergrow.com. And we're back.
Hey.
HUNTR Podcasts, episode 96. Thanks, Nick.
Excuse me.
Jeez.
I had a little phlegm in my throat.
Yeah, I know Nick's over there. I don't know if he's in a pool of COVID or what.
Dude, I get so in my head about that stuff. Literally, this is funny. My wife makes fun of me. The second that you said I have I've got a little bit of a head cold, I'm like, does my chest hurt? Does my head hurt?
Straight.
Immediately, I start fretting.
Yeah. Do you think that makes it worse? Do you
Yeah.
think you get sick
100%.
if you worry about being sick?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I have to just convince myself.
I mean, dude, I went through the ringer this week. Like this weekend, I was around millions of people.
I'm gonna take a Zycam just in case.
I was in and around millions of people in like Universal Studios, like kids running everywhere, boogers being shot out like left and right.
Yeah.
And like, so if I don't get sick from that, like I have to look at it as like that just boosted my tolerance up for whatever's flying around.
Dude, maybe not quite to the level, but I was in Cracker Barrel yesterday morning.
Definitely close, but not quite.
It was packed, man. It was a 45-minute wait.
Oh, yeah.
So we just,
For dinner?
Brunch. It was like 11.
Yeah, that's so like what
It was
puzzles
Sunday.
me about. Well, no,
I'm
yesterday
sorry, 2
was
days
Monday.
ago then. Yeah,
Okay.
2 days ago.
I was yeah, dude.
Sunday
Sunday
brunch.
for sure.
Yeah.
Church crowd.
That's exactly right.
Church crowd.
Yep. So
let's.
I actually bought a skillet
from Cracker Barrel.
Yeah, from Cracker Barrel, because we spent enough time there that I was like,
Oh, they always sucker you in on something in that store.
look what I got here.
Oh, little Smokies.
More Schmeckies.
Mm-hmm.
That's not Zycam. Must not
While
have
you're
it.
looking for your Zycam, can we talk about the strange picture you just got?
Okay. It's a strange picture. So, dude, I'll show you the whole sequence. I have never laughed so hard, I don't think, by myself in my car. Like, it was just me.
Mm-hmm.
Usually you're laughing because it's like your friends are laughing too. And it's like you're there. It was just me laughing out loud.
Are you on like a
hysterically.
5-second delay on this cell cam?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean,
3 picture burst.
3 picture, 5 seconds.
I got about 15 pictures.
We're getting all of it. Mm-hmm.
So
set the scene for us.
I was out at a listing appointment, and I was coming home or heading out. I was coming home, and it was 32 pictures. I remember because I was like, I didn't get a notification or I missed it, and I pulled it up, and I see 32 pictures on this camera that it's been fairly slow. It's just kind of like it's an edge scrape that I'm just trying to. It's the first time hunting that property and stuff, trying to see what's there.
This is every hunter's worst nightmare, by the way.
I mean,
maybe not worst.
It
nightmare,
is what it's not like I had a giant buck showing up there. That would have been worse.
No.
But I'll walk you through the whole sequence.
Okay. And I mean, dude, at this point, this guy looks like he's in maybe a trot format. So it's a guy coming into frame.
Yeah.
He's definitely got hands on the belt.
Blue jeans,
already.
John Deere hat.
Hands are on the belt.
Red, but yeah,
Yeah, hands
bursting
are on the belt.
at the seam.
Okay. Next picture.
Okay.
Oh, at this point, he's checking the scenery.
He's standing literally dead center in my scrape.
He's wide. This isn't woods. There's nothing to lean it. He's in the wide open, overgrown field.
He's got a little bit of edge cover. A little bit of edge.
Yeah, but no. Okay.
Yeah, just brush.
Now he's going for the belt.
Hands on the belt. He's leaning. Suspenders are down.
He's buckling.
We're looking at the zipper. Little struggle with the zipper.
Dude, and that was fast. Okay, so that's bare ass.
Yeah.
At this point, it's pure bare. He went from
We got a hard quartering away angle here. This guy's dropping drawers. All I could see is cheeks.
He went from belt to suspenders to bare ass in like 6 seconds.
I can't even, dude. The trigger speed here is unfortunate in this case. I'm pretty sure we're seeing some nuggets dropping here.
I think it has to be hot snakes. I mean, the speed that he went in, the fact.
Look, he comes up for a break and he goes back down.
Listen, here's the other thing. Picture, yeah, it's an overgrown field, but he's in the wide open. There is nothing to lean against. There's nothing to grab onto. So you know that he didn't even have time to set up and lean against something. It's got to be coming fast.
Yeah. You know what's interesting here? We're trying to
straight gurgles at this point.
We've been trying to do some detective work, figure out if this is premeditated or not.
There's no way it's premeditated.
Okay, he has toilet paper with him.
Well, yeah, so do I.
Just at all times? Farming?
Well, I don't know.
That's what I'm saying.
I don't combine.
Well,
but in the stand, yeah, I've got TP. We talked about the importance of wipes as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I definitely bring in TP.
66 degrees, full moon. Putting the pieces together here.
I mean,
5:27 p.m.
There's no.
He got up and out of his bedding area.
He was booking it in there. He had the stomach gurgles. He dropped it. He brought TP.
Yeah.
I mean, if he's in a tractor, he's got TP. Whitey tighty's pulling up.
Some whiteys.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a John Deere cap as well.
I think so too.
Mm-hmm.
Here he is. Here would be your evidence. Here would be your
buckling back up.
Yeah.
Yep, buckling in.
Walking right out. There he is.
Little full beard. Mm-hmm.
We'll protect his identity. I'm gonna want.
He's mature.
He's fully mature. Yeah, we'd have to go inspect the.
That's unfortunate for him.
Scene of the crime, but so I don't know. It'd be an interesting experience if nothing or experiment with that camera. I'll leave it for a few days.
I would say that it's probably going to be slow activity.
Yeah, you would think.
Maybe he keeps coming back.
Yeah, like he's starting to mark a scrape. It's very possible.
Yeah. Cold front Thursday. We'll see. Maybe after that rain comes through.
I think what's going to be so...
I'll be on her.
I think what's going to be so uncomfortable is when you finally see him in person and he reaches out his hands, you're going to be like, you didn't wash that.
I'll be like, you know what, bro? I'm good. Yeah.
I
don't know. I mean, what was weird, it's interesting to note the There's clearly a scrape. It's a big open scrape. There's a big...
He doesn't know.
I know. That's what I'm saying. There's a big gnarly licking branch like that I've intertwined all the veins.
Yeah, he doesn't know.
Just no idea.
It'd been real cool if he grabbed a hold of that son of a gun.
He was holding on to it as a gripvine.
Uh-huh.
I just can't get over, like, what are the odds?
Well, I mean...
Yeah, very little. That's what is so rare.
You would think that they are very little, but between you and I, we probably have like 80 cell cams out. So, I mean, odds are we're going to get some of that at some point.
I'm running like 12.
12?
Yeah.
I'm around like 40.
12, yeah, it's like 12.
40 deep.
12 or 15. Something like that.
Seems light.
I've got a few ready to...
Those are rookie numbers.
To go out. Yeah, I've been moving them around a lot.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, dude, that was...
I would probably move that one around.
That was a first. That was a first for me, for sure.
Yeah.
It was just so perfect. Like it
was a cold front.
It was just he's dead center in the middle of the frame. I just couldn't believe it. I was like, this is happening. Yeah. It's really happening.
Did he look at the camera once?
Never.
Yeah. I would say it was complete. I mean, just so centered though. Why no leaning? Why no leaning or grabbing? Like
I can't even
just
picture
pulling straight squats.
I don't know if it's the appropriate response, but my first thing was like, I just sent it to everybody I know. Well, just I was like, I was just dying.
Yeah.
Dale had some good jokes, but then he said, "What is that? A pooping young?" I'm 140, pooping young.
Oh man. All right. Well, it is October 11th. Man, I keep catching myself. Like I feel behind. I feel like, I don't have anything patterned, and it's October 11th.
Yeah, you're right where you need to be.
Yeah, I know. I feel worked up about it because we've been on it. I mean, since late August. I mean, we've been
hunting yet? Have you hunted yet? No.
Yeah.
I
taken the kids.
I hunted twice. Just I mean, observation, just way on the outskirts.
I might Thursday or Friday this week. I don't know.
You don't know.
It would still be pure. I don't really have a deer that I want to kill yet on camera. I do in Kentucky, I guess, but I've been trying. I always try to make October about the kids. I'm not kind of a dad, take care of them. And that's just so dad gets the ride.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, obviously.
Yeah.
So that's
Sound like Ben Rising. I'm like, hey, does he have any mounts in here? He's like, no, his is in a garage.
Ben wrote me the other day or something. And I was trying to get the kids ready for school, and he was like, "Oh, I figured you'd have one of them carrying like 50 pounds of corn up the mountain by now."
Oh, here, check this out. We'll give Ben a little shout out here.
What you got?
Ben's got some new hoodies.
Oh, wait till
They're pretty sweet. Wife says they look good in mustard, so here, check this out. Ben's got some new hoodies.
Kind of like a deer brown. Wait till Edge USA.
On their website. You should go check them out and buy one.
Yeah, I like it.
You got a black one, too.
You should probably just send me one.
Or that. We like to support our friends.
So cool. Well, it's the 11th. We've got a cold front coming in, but we're kind of.
I've got a giant buck.
You do have a giant buck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stud.
Do you think you've got a bead on him now?
Yeah. Well, yes and no. I know where he's bedding.
Mm-hmm.
Or had been bedding for a few days. Dude, I got a picture of him on one of my only non-cell cameras is the thing. Also, he more than likely caught my wind the other day when I was hunting what I thought was about the safest possible option.
But it was blown right down in there.
Well, it was blown across a road.
Yeah.
And
that's where he's coming from.
And that's where he'd been coming from. This camera is literally 5 feet from the road. It's a stealth cam. I've got it tucked real low. There's just it's a bottom. It's a ravine that they cross over. I knew it would be nice.
Coming to that corn and beans.
And he was there 2 or 3 nights. Yeah, coming to the corn and beans about like 7:30.
It's a tough spot, man. Because what side of the road are you going to kill him on?
I think the thick side.
The side he's coming from?
At least right now. He'll be in that pinch at some point. It's just, can I wait or can I kill him before then?
Yeah, I don't like him. I don't like you having to wait for him to get across the road, though.
Yeah. Well, the time to hunt that pinch,
Sure.
he'll be all over that thing.
Yep.
I've got some. We'll look at Hunt Stand here after. I've got a couple options.
It'll be interesting to see how he reacts when those crops come down too.
For sure.
So, anyways, we're about that time. We're gearing up also for the Steve Shirk hunt, which will be the 20th through the 22nd.
Dude, it's gonna be busy.
Which we're gonna be in Big Woods public land. So we brought a guest on today that that's his thing, I would think.
The Big Woods, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Big Woods of PA, especially. Yeah, that's where he's from.
Yep. Beau Martonik is East Meets West podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And dude, so I heard about
full
disclosure.
Did you shave your mustache because Beau's is so good?
No, but before the fact,
He did, didn't he, Nick? He's like, oh shit, I can't come to the table with this.
It would have probably, it's funny. Dude, I'm such an idiot. Like whenever he's like, so what are you guys doing with this podcast? Instead of like asking our tricks of the trade, I'm like, so what are you doing with that mustache? Is what I'm thinking. Like, how you doing that? How you doing that?
Yeah. Do you like put stuff on it? Did you put any deer grill on that thing?
It's quite solid. I think Beau killed a nice buck. I don't know if it's opening day, but in Pennsylvania already.
Oh, really?
I could be mistaken. I thought I saw.
I watched his one from last year.
Maybe it was last year.
Killed a stud last year, and yeah. I think he had picked up his sheds the year before, but we'll get into that. But yeah, I mean it's.
Well, dude, I was gonna say I heard about Beau, and then you interrupted me.
Sorry.
With that rude mustache comment from a buddy at the gym. Like I've heard, there's been a few people that are like, oh, if you heard of this East Meets West dude, they're like, yeah, he's, real deal when it comes to podcasts and stuff. I was like, and that's where I was kind of just apologizing to our audience. I'm fairly unplugged as far as keeping up with stuff, but checked out some of Beau's stuff. He was fairly easy to get in touch with. It sounds like we have some mutual friends with Allie.
Yep.
He's a PA dude. Offered to swing by and do the podcast in person.
Holy cow.
But timing.
Well, it was either he could come in person or we do it today so we can all hunt the cold front this week.
That's what we all kind of
obviously
decided on.
Yeah, so we've got that.
But he's here with us today remotely, and we're going to get into some good stuff.
Cool. Let's bring on Beau.
What's going on? It's pretty interesting to be like the fly on the wall while you guys are doing that intro.
And not able to participate at all.
Yeah, I had some comments and I was muted.
Well, dude,
what's that, Beau? Oh, sorry, we can't hear you.
What was funny is we were like 90 podcasts in before we realized the guests could actually hear what we were saying. So
yeah, we'd be like, now this guy, he's a little slow. And then he gets on, he's like, I can hear you guys.
I hear everything you say. You're really?
Oh.
Could you see us as well? Yes, I could hear and see everything you guys are saying.
We've learned.
Yeah, we have. Well, cool, man. Well, we appreciate you taking some time today. Like we kind of did in the prelude there, like it was cool with your flexibility so we could all hunt the cold front this week. So listen, that's what it's all about in mid-October. I mean, a cold front's coming. You better be on it. That's what's going to make it all worth it, I think.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, definitely. Like I love this, like the cold front that aligns with how what's coming this weekend. Like I've never really been able to hunt it much, but I've always, like, my cameras have shown like anywhere from the 13th to the 18th of October, like some of my biggest deer moving on scrapes.
Yep.
That time frame, and then associated with, I don't know about where you guys are at, but we're supposed to get some rain on Thursday associated with that cold front, and that just gets me fired up.
That's it. I think we were talking about it maybe last podcast. Like, definitely deer are starting to work some scrapes and stuff. But even like this past weekend, we kind of had that like faux cold front come through, like temperature drop, but we didn't get any precip with it. It's when you get that precip with that cold front in that mid-October time period, it forces those deer to go and refresh scrapes.
That's hunter for rain, Nick.
Oh, precip?
Yeah.
Sorry. Precipitation. Yes.
Since you mentioned that, I meant to, I think, ask you last week, and I don't know if I got a chance to, but there's a lot of pressure on me.
Oh,
Guys are like, have you seen? I saw two different guys do it, and maybe some more have covered it. It was Warren from Raised Hunting and Beau the dude that caught his truck on fire.
Oh, yeah.
I saw both of those guys this summer doing some comments about mock scrapes, and like, remember I told you about this, pouring water in it
to like activate it.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, I've done the whole pee in the scrape because ammonia is ammonia, and most of your pee is water anyways. But
well, the thought, I think, is that, have you seen that, Beau? Have you heard any?
No, I just pee in all my own scrapes. I've never dumped any water in it. I only have a little bit of water with me, and I like to drink it.
Right.
It's like dehydration, or use it in the scrape.
Well, I think that those guys both acknowledged, the peeing in the scrape method, and basically their take is that it's moisture more than it would be the ammonium. And I'm not saying that works definitely, and that I do that too, but I mean, dude, the fact that deer hit scrapes, hard after a rain, I think kind of verifies that thinking.
The HUNTR Podcast is brought to you by Stealth Cam.
Dude, where would we be without our cell cams?
I would definitely be divorced at this point.
Yeah, I hear that.
I mean, the fact is I spent more time checking cameras than I actually did hunting prior to cell cameras. Now, at least, my wife can enjoy me being in the comfort of my own home, buried in my phone, checking those pictures.
Yeah, 100%. And dude, when it comes to trail cameras and definitely cell cameras, reliability is, I think, the number one thing that we're looking for. Stealth Cam just has a long reputation of reliable cameras, and ultimately that is the most important thing to us. They have to work.
In terms of reliability, there's not a better camera on the market than Stealth Cam, whether you're talking about the Fusion X, the Reactor, or the DS4K Transmit. And most of them are under $200.
Stealthcam.com. Check them out.
All right, Beau, give me your input on the acorns.
So what I was finding, I was just down in West Virginia. I was down in southern West Virginia, kind of scouting / hunting the last 3 days or so, and I was checking all the ridges for acorns, and I couldn't find any white oaks, but the red oaks were dropping pretty good. But there was so many chestnut oaks, and it just acorns everywhere from that standpoint. But the deer aren't a huge fan of the chestnut oaks, as my buddy refers to them. It's a last resort, man. He calls them the Sheets hot dogs of the deer woods, because it's like, only if you absolutely have to. You know, if you're really running low, you've been driving all night and need to stop somewhere, Sheets will have some hot dogs and they'll get you through. But that's
really, yeah. And even then, I need some chili and cheese on those hot dogs if I'm gonna put them down. So
I had never heard that. I thought they loved chestnut oaks.
No, so that's
a white oak.
So anything with when you get into the acorns from the oaks, like different types of oaks have higher levels of tannins in them, and so chestnut oaks have one of the higher levels of tannins, which makes them have a more bitter taste to them. So, and again, it's not that they won't eat them, especially in years probably like this year where like there isn't much else. It's just they surely don't prefer them.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've ever been able to like differentiate because they're so intermixed, but I mean, I feel like I've seen them eat a lot of chestnut. We have a place called Chestnut Ridge because I was like, oh, they're friggin' everywhere here. And it's covered with chestnut water.
I think if you get into some of these areas, so like behind my house is this way, I've got 28 acres, but it goes up on the mountains where there's a bunch of game lands and stuff. And when I get up on the top of those ridges, it's all chestnut oaks, but I have like a few whites and several reds down in lower. And if they're dropping, like I could roll my ankle on the chestnut oaks up on the top because they won't touch those acorns. They'll come down off and hit the whites and reds on the lower hillsides. So, but if you don't have an option, it is what it is. Now, the one thing I will say is I've seen, and I don't know how much truth it is, I've seen bears crank on those chestnut oaks on the acorns, but I don't know if they necessarily have as much preference as a whitetail has.
Yeah, I just saw that when I was in West Virginia. I was going through a bunch of chestnut oaks, and I worked my way off this bench and went up on this little point, and right below me where I was just at, there was a mother and 3 cubs were feeding on some of the chestnut oak acorns down there below me.
Yeah, so I think, and it's normally because I don't think that, even though a black bear is an omnivore, like they aren't preferencing browse and stuff as heavily in their diet as a whitetail is. So they have to rely on those mass species to get them through into that fall torpor time frame. So
that's one thing I'm glad we don't have in Ohio is bears.
Bears, yeah. They're spotty, but not.
They love your cameras, all your cell cameras. That's
no doubt, man.
It was funny when I was down in West Virginia. I mean, we have a lot of bears, in Pennsylvania, obviously, but down there, my buddies were like, "Hey, did you bring any like bear boxes or security boxes?" I was like, I quit running them. It was too expensive to buy boxes for all my cameras. Like I used to do that, and I was like, anymore I don't. He's like, you'll probably lose a couple of those cameras.
Well, dude, that was the thing. Like on public land, like when I was hunting a lot in Missouri, and then even in some Pennsylvania places, like occasionally I still will, but I don't know. Some of the cameras are cheaper that I'm running, like some of the cheaper stealths that I have for sell. But man, my setup was bear box, like Python cable. I mean, it was like, public land wasn't, easy on your cameras. You were trying to protect them, but then you limit how many you can run because, dude, Python cable's $20, a bear box is $20. I mean, hell, that setup runs more than half the cameras I run.
Yeah.
Yep, that's exactly what I got into too. And it was just like, okay, how do I want to, balance? I want to have more cameras. So like there's some I still run the boxes on, but they also take up a lot more room in your pack.
Yep.
So if you're going out scouting, it's like I can throw 5 cameras in my pack, or if I'm running bear boxes, you can fit 2 or 3, and then you also got to put stuff in between them so they're not clanging together as you're walking and making a whole bunch of noise. And also, like if you're trying to check your cameras, say in the morning going into your tree, when you got that metal box on there, trying to get that off quietly, it's like it gets stuck, and I'm like, trying to go real easy, and all of a sudden it pops, and then it's just like, well, that's nice.
That's it. Metal on metal. You're done.
Does it help to put the cameras up in a tree a little bit?
Yeah, so that's what I try to do is I'll like either use a stick or just reach up, just try to get them out of eyesight of the bears for the most part, and in people, but just try to get them out of eyesight a little bit, I think helps. I think it just makes them mad when it's like right in their face.
Did we hung a camera in Kansas this year? How high do you think it is?
18 feet.
Yeah. 20 feet.
Really?
Yeah. Well, so we have a little bit of a battle going on this piece of public ground. So it's a good spot. In fact, I killed like a 157 off of it 2 years ago. And there's a giant scrape that every year, just gets annihilated. And so like we've had cameras there.
We're feuding over it.
Yeah, we've had cameras there off and on for like 6 years. And then so our
I don't know if it's been off and on. They've been there for 6 years.
And so we lost, basically our stand got stolen and a camera got stolen. And then in the replacement, somebody put a shitty spy point.
Yeah.
And so
it's all right there. We have a camera and a stand, giant muck scrape, or giant scrape.
Yeah.
And our stuff is gone. Scrapes fairly recently worked, and there's this would you say it was a shitty spy point?
Yeah. And so that spy point no longer exists, and our camera's now 18 to 20 feet high looking down at that scrape. I would think that somebody is going to appreciate it and say, well done, boys. Like, good play.
Yes, I would. If I saw that, I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
we've been one up here.
I'd still put my camera right there down as a base on the same
for
scrape.
sure.
But yeah, you kind of have to. And I mean, that's it. I like, obviously, like, I don't ever want to like take people's stuff, but clearly, like,
Don't you know you're not supposed to leave cameras on public land in Kansas, or is that just stands?
I think it's just stands. Yeah. I don't know about cameras. Every state has it different. Frankly, I don't even know what Pennsylvania's is anymore. You know what that is, Beau, in terms of leaving cameras and stands on public?
Yeah, you have to have like your ID, your
Your CID.
game tag ID. Yeah, that number, you have to have that on your cameras. And same thing with your stands, but I don't leave any stands up, so it's just the cameras that I have to put that on.
Yeah.
Like you can either put your CID number or you can get a number, so it's like conspicuous as far as how that works.
How they could look it up. That's what it was in Missouri as well, and then they eventually banned cell cameras or any trail cameras on public land. But your stands where you had to put your identification number on there. Same with like your traps and stuff. Like if you're trapping, you have to have your CID on them and everything. It
seems like an insurance thing more than anything. Like someone climbs in your stand and falls out, like that it's on you.
That seems crazy.
I don't know.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, so the one thing, so Missouri is if it's not in the book, it's a legal state. And so this was back in 2011 and 12. I was running a ton of cameras on public land, and we knew some of the people at the department, and they're like, yeah. And I mean, everybody did it. But then eventually, somehow it got out, and it was like, well, it doesn't mention anything about use of trail cameras on public land. And therefore, based on their law, it's illegal. Like, you couldn't run them, which is a stupid law. But, and I think they've changed it since. But, you know, it's weird how some of these states, like whether it's privacy issues, you know, on public land, and that, you know, that people don't want you to have your camera up so that you're taking pictures of other people by, you know, chance of them walking
yesterday,
through.
I think we can understand.
Yeah, per yesterday with the guy taking a dump in front of it.
Funny.
But like, I don't know. I mean, it's a weird thing that, you know, it's so inconsistent from state to state. I guess that's the issue. You know, so if you're crossing state lines, like if you're going from PA to West Virginia, like it's a whole different set of rules probably down there.
Yeah, it is. And it's so hard to keep up with that, especially if you're traveling to other states. Like I'm constantly trying to like go through the books and try to understand what the interpretation of some of the stuff is, because it's not always crystal clear.
Yeah.
But yeah, cameras are all different. And even
there's
so many
properties.
different laws.
Like a national forest may have something different than the state forest, that may have something different than the game land. So like, you know, all of those things together, like.
Are there some apps that have tried to curate that information? I know it's I
don't know.
Who's that one Western? The Go Hunt.
The Go Hunt app.
I know that they do it with season dates.
Okay.
I don't know if they pull in regs or not.
I mean, I know that like Onyx and I think HuntStand both have like, for Pennsylvania, we have wildlife management units. Like I know that's on there, but I don't think it gives you much. Well, you saw what I was using it in like Kentucky the other day, and it was like a hunting restriction for waterfowl.
Yeah.
But it didn't really say what the hell it was. So I don't know. Not that I care.
Yeah, they don't want to have to update it all the time or be out of date and give you the wrong information. So like I know like in the Spartan Forge app I use, they just have a link, you know, that goes to the most recent regulations.
That's the easiest way to do it.
Yeah. That is like there's no other way really to keep up with that, to be able to do it. But I know like in Pennsylvania, for example, when you're talking about the differences in like national forest, state game lands, all that stuff, like as far as baiting goes, you know, it's outside of the season. So like you can run minerals and on some public pieces, but state game lands you can't.
Mm-hmm.
And then like the national forest this year, they put a CWD regulation, so there's no minerals in the national forest this for like a 1 year time period.
Interesting.
And then there's other private pieces that are open to public hunting that you're able to do that on, as long as it's removed 30 days before the season or whatever that is. But yeah, there's so many different little things depending on each piece, you know, within the state too, that makes it challenging.
I think there's like e-bikes is another one that there's like some blurred lines on. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, state land versus national forest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I don't think you can use e-bikes on game lands, state game lands.
NPA?
MPA.
Really?
That's at least what I've heard
So
the last.
no. So like when I asked, so I used to when I used to work for I was talking to you about this, Jared, but I used to work for Bucks and Bows down there
Yeah.
by Pittsburgh,
Yeah.
and we were a quiet cat dealer,
He used to
and
room with
when-
Tony. Remember I told you I ran up to Bucks and Bows and I was
Yeah.
like, oh, dude, Tony, I barely recognize
Yeah.
him. He used to room with Bo.
yeah, and so when I worked down there, I remember talking to the game wardens about like what's the legality of e-bikes, and they were just like no, like not on anything, but like when
Sounds
you read the regs, there's like, it kind of looks like you can in certain places,
Sure.
depending on what it says, but I think it's probably up to who you run into
The
there. So I
specific
just kind
encounter.
of keep them off that. But there is like, so I got an e-bike recently, and I'm just was flooded with messages telling me how it's illegal in Pennsylvania, and I was like, well, there's also a lot of private pieces that are timber company properties
Right.
and things like that allow that stuff if you call them and talk to them and ask. So it's like, it's not black and white as far as it's just completely illegal in those places. So
Yeah. Well, corn's illegal in Pennsylvania and people still do it. So
yeah, I know.
During the season.
you can't gut a deer in the big woods and find a big corn pile in its belly.
Can you
and-
bait? Can you can just somebody put a corn pile in their backyard for the purposes of seeing deer?
I don't think so. I know it's a fine line because people will say the same thing about bird feeders and everything else, but technically you're not supposed to. You're not supposed to feed wildlife, period. But
Really?
yeah, especially during the season.
And for anybody listening, make sure that you check the regulations yourself and don't trust what we are saying.
Yeah, exactly.
As far as,
Yeah, I know
our
for a
interpretation.
fact that like minerals and stuff like that's got to be up
Just
30
trust your
days,
instinct.
30
That's
days
what I
before
do.
the season opener for deer.
Yeah.
So if you're using minerals on private land or wherever it's legal, 30 days before it's got to be up, and they kind of expect you to dig that shit up out of the ground too.
I was just gonna say that you're supposed to put it in like a trash can lid or something that like underneath there so you can get it up, because technically it's always in the ground and it's not going away. So, and there's no legal requirement in Pennsylvania as far as how many feet you have to be away from a bait site or a mineral site that was there.
Yep.
It's up to the interpretation of the officer. That's like, okay, was this deer could have potentially been going towards that.
That's crazy.
Kind of what it is. Yeah.
Well, and you think, I mean, first of all, and no knock to them, but I mean, our game commission law enforcement is super short staffed. Like, you got one, maybe two, if you're lucky, wardens to like an entire WMU, which is insane.
Dude, I know I'm derailing a conversation constantly, but dude, I stopped at a little place on the way to that listing yesterday. It's called Hungarian Meats, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I know where you're at.
Been there, Hunter?
Mm-hmm.
Dude, that's a gold. That's a gem.
Yeah, it's a really nice place.
I was like just looking for anything. I was like, I'm starved. I haven't eaten anything all day. I was just looking for anything. That place is awesome.
Yeah.
I pulled in and the doors are plastered with like Hunter's Welcome. There was a guy there. It's a butcher shop, come to find out.
Mm-hmm.
And they also have hot food and stuff. And
yeah, it's a cool place.
I'll tell you, the guy that, I don't know if he owns that place or he's involved somehow. He didn't have anything good to say about the game commission. It sounds like you run him out of there a couple times. Because they come down there with accusations basically, and there's like, dude, you have no proof.
Well, yeah, because they want, again, the tagging. This is all the interpretation stuff. Like there is a way to do it, and the book states it, but like, technically, like that deer tag on that antler is illegal. It should be on the actual
carcass
leg of the deer, or ear.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, ultimately these guys got bigger fish to fry, but if they're bored, they can get you.
Do they though?
They should, man. I mean, we just talked about baiting. I mean, I couldn't tell you how many deer that I've seen people shoot and open it up and it's got corn all through it, and I'm in the middle of the national forest. Like, there's no cornfields around.
And have you been able to get any attention to that?
I have in one case. I've sent people and they have got busted.
Nice.
But that's 1 out of probably 10. Yeah. And that's just because I know the guy in
to your point of
my
being
area.
understaffed. Yeah, no, they're not
Yeah,
perfect.
super understaffed.
Either way.
Well, and honestly, no knock to the state, but we've got separate game and fish commissions. If you combine that law enforcement, you'd be in a lot better shape.
Or just more people.
Well, you've got fish commission wardens and you've got game commission wardens.
Yeah.
And they can't write regulations or they can't, enforce laws on the different commissions.
Regardless, there's probably still not enough of them.
No, there isn't. at least for trespassing and baiting violations and whatever else. The HUNTR Podcast is brought to you by Hoyt Archery.
Dude, where would we be without our Hoyt bows?
Probably shooting crossbows.
or a Matthews, yeah.
One and the same.
Yeah.
But in all seriousness, we love being Hoyt guys because you stand out. When you're in this room full of other people that shoot these other types of bows, I feel like the Hoyt guys just stick out.
Dude, it's just a legit bow. I mean, especially that carbon riser, man. I mean, I know that they've got several other aluminum lines as well, but for me, I'm shooting that RX-5 in the carbon model. They've since come out with the RX-7, and I can't tell you how much I love being a Hoyt guy amongst a sea full of Matthews guys. So we're out there, I think, proving them wrong, shooting 80 pounds and, killing stuff.
Hey, man, if you want to get serious, get Hoyt.
Well, dude, if we can, I'd like to know a little bit about your saddle setup. I know you do a lot of public stuff, and I mentioned that Jeremy has one too. I don't know if you're as into it as I am, but I'm very interested in having the saddle as a tool in the toolbox this year. And so after having John Eberhard on a few times, he talked us into buying the Eberhard Signature Series tethered saddle, which you mentioned that there's a few things that you would change about it, and we agree. I was messing around in my yard the other day, just kind of trying to get comfortable with the process because, dude, I'm just the process of hanging a hang-on stand in a tree is just so ingrained in me. It's like when I look at a tree, my brain immediately is like, it's going to go this way. I can climb that side of it. Here's how I would do it. And I think the saddle kind of requires a little bit different of a mindset. So I'm trying to figure out how to broaden my the way that I look at trees and perceive how I would approach a setup. And it sounds like you've got a pretty good process for it.
Yeah, no, I started playing around with the saddle in 2019. So I was like extremely against it from the standpoint I thought it was just a fad that everyone was kind of doing. So I just was like purposefully just kind of staying away from it and was like, oh yeah, I'd like using my hang on and my climbers when I go. That's just what I've always used. Just kind of, you were joking about like how you said before we started recording about you're gonna start carrying ladder stands around your mobile hunt with a ladder stand.
Go against the grain.
But I found a picture of myself like a while back where I had this big platform stand. It was like this Summit that had this like recliner thing in it that was a hang on, and then I had those like the $40 like guide gear sticks, the steel sticks, and I had that all in my pack, like carrying that in, like that was like that's what I was using for run and gun type style. Oh my gosh, it killed my shoulders trying to carry all that stuff, and it stuck like 4 feet above my head. So any bush that I go through, I get caught on. But as that evolved, then it went to the hang on and the climbers, and climbers are sweet, but they're kind of loud going up the tree, which I don't think really. I've had deer come into that noise as it's scraping the bark like on a cherry tree or something. But you have to find a perfect tree, and like it's a perfect tree for the climber, not a perfect tree for the setup.
Right.
And then as I went to hang-ons, that worked really well to be able to get in. But the saddle just, when I started using it, I was going back and forth between both of them. I got the saddle in the middle of the season, which wasn't ideal. Like the biggest thing I've learned with saddle hunting, I got my dad into it last year, and you need to practice with it, practice shooting out of it, because it's different. It's 100% different to be able to do that. But I've just found that it's so lightweight. I carry it with me when I'm scouting. So as I go scouting, I have I use the Phantom saddle by Tethered, which is super comfortable for me. And I always carry the back recliner with it. It's like a piece of mesh that goes, you can move up and down your back or under your legs, and that helps out a ton. And then I have their one sticks that weigh 16 ounces a piece. So I carry 4 of those, the saddle and the Little Predator platform, and all that weighs like 7 pounds. So like I have that on my back, and as I'm scouting going through, and then I can set up on hot sign if I need to. I don't need to be like, oh, I found a good spot, I need to go back and get it.
Right.
I hated carrying around a hang on all the time doing that. So that was like the biggest benefit for me. And then I found that like I can get in just about any tree, and I don't need to be high off the ground because you have the tree in front of you is cover. So I can get up in it and be able to shoot out of it that way. But I love that setup. I've got it down to where I don't need to go down the tree at all. Everything's on me as I'm going up. From the time my foot goes off the ground, I don't come back down. I've kind of figured out where the pain points as far as where metal could clang together, and I use hockey tape on all that to make sure that it doesn't
Freaking
hit.
hockey tape on there, eh?
That's exactly it, man.
Yep, a hockey. I learned that.
I got
from
my
spending
mustache,
time.
eh? Got my hockey tape, eh?
Yeah.
Got my
Well, I
saddle,
spent
eh?
time in the Bow Zone hunting with Jim Holt Jr. If you guys are familiar with his process at all, it's very hockey tape everything. So like I
Oh, is
learned
that the Sitka film dude? Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah.
So I was in that film when we did that years ago,
Oh,
and
cool.
that's where I learned like a lot about the hockey tape
Yeah,
on
he
everything.
he didn't let you leave the cabin without like hockey tape and anything.
Oh my gosh, no. Jim is he's exactly how he is in that video. Like
Was that
that's
Canada?
the way that was in Canada, yeah. The Bow
Hockey
Zone,
tape, eh?
Edmonton, Alberta. So
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
yep. So I hockey tape it, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And like I use like there's like the little bags that are on the cis haulers that you can buy for the side of the tethered saddles. And so I put my ropes in there, my
what are those,
attachments.
Beau? I was looking for those yesterday, and what are they? What are those called?
So they're called cis haulers, SYS haulers.
Okay.
So there are two of them. I put two of them on each side, or one on each side, and
I gotta
the
get
one
some
on
of
my right
those.
side has my lineman's rope and my tether in it. And I always have my lineman's rope on top because it's the first thing that comes
Sure.
out, and it's tied to the little loop on my saddle, so it's ready to go on one side.
Got
I
it.
click it on. I go up the tree. Well, I put my sticks in the loop on those cis haulers. So there's just like the rope, the cinch cord.
Oh,
I put that around my stick, so I don't have to have an additional tie or
so they're
anything
just
on
kind
there.
of hanging off.
Yeah, they're just hanging off the side, but they stick together. So like those one sticks have like little plastic pins that stick them together so they don't bang around.
Got it.
So I'll have two on one side, and I can hang the first two basically from the first one on the ground,
Yep.
and I carry the other one in my hand as I go up. I put that one on,
Yep.
Mhm.
and then my Predator platform goes on the back of my saddle.
Yep.
So like I have a little plastic piece I bought from Genesis 3D printing. It's a little hook, and it hooks right on my platform, and that goes on the back. It doesn't bump against my sticks. I can go up the tree. As I get up, I'm there in my lineman's rope attached, and at that point I get the actual tether out, hook that in, and then on my other side, the other cis hauler is where I keep basically the gear attachment rope that goes, or what's it called?
The tether.
I can't think of it, but the thing goes around the tree with a bunch of loops on it where you can put hooks.
Oh yeah.
And everything.
Your
to be able to
accessory
put
stuff.
your accessory thing strap.
Mhm.
And then I put my bow hook that's already on there, and I just
Mhm.
move it to the right one depending on the diameter of the tree. And then there's a carabiner that hangs down off the long end that loops through that strap,
Mhm.
and that's where I hang my backpack.
Got it.
So, and I get that all set up, take my lineman's rope, get the tether to where it needs to be at, and yeah, I'm ready to rip at that point.
How long do you think it takes you from foot leaving the ground to you're setting your saddle?
If there's not a ton of branches in the way,
Mhm.
I can be up in 10 minutes.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Just the cis hauler? Is there a specific one? I'm gonna buy them right now.
The cis hauler 2.0 is the one that
That's what
I
you like?
used. I haven't tried it yet, but I did get for the right side where the ropes are, there's like a roll up pouch thing that you just roll up the ropes, so it's just a little bit smaller.
Mhm.
But honestly, the cis haulers have worked really well for me. I just like trying different things to see how it works.
What?
Yeah, that's kind of neat that you have it like right there at your fingertips on both sides. It becomes more of a method of like as you're climbing up, knowing where everything's at to access it,
I see.
with an arm's reach. And then where's your bow on your backpack?
Yeah, I have that strapped to the back of my backpack. So I'm running one of those Sitka cargo boxes. So like
Yep.
there's spots for the sticks on each side. And then I put the bow on the back because when I walk in, I carry my bow, and then I have my platform on the back of it with the two straps there. That's where I put my saddle platform. Then I remove that, put it on the actual saddle, and then put my bow on the backpack as I go up the tree.
And you're taking your sticks off the side of that pack and then putting them right off of the cis haulers.
Yeah, that's correct. Yep, I put those on there, and that works really well. So like a lot of people like to wear their saddle into the tree, and I don't much. One, that the saddle always seemed to fall down from the weight of
Sure.
the stuff I had in it.
Yeah.
And like your backpack, by the time you had all that stuff on, it was kind of in the way.
Yeah.
But I did just get suspenders for it, and that's
Mm.
awesome. Like that helps out a ton for keeping that up. But normally I'm carrying in like bibs or something if it's colder weather, so I have to take it off anyway. So I just
Yeah.
pack it into my backpack.
Well, it would seem like if you're walking in, I mean, we talk about this all the time, and I think this is kind of like bucks, like what guys are estimating deer. Like, oh man, I did a 2-mile walk. Like a 2-mile walk deep into public that's a long haul. And if you're walking 2 miles with your saddle on, I feel like you're either going to chafe yourself to death or you're just going to walk really awkwardly for 2 miles. Like,
Yeah.
Just keep yourself normal form, and especially if you're trying to get in quiet in the dark and stuff. Like, it's added. It's not natural, movement when you're trying to get in, and it's not going to take you long to, take it off your pack and put it on when you get to the tree.
Yeah, it's 2 seconds to throw that on. So like, I just don't see the need to carry it. Like, I'm not like in that kind of stealth mode where I'm like stepping right to the tree and then just like climbing. I'm gonna take a minute to get my stuff together.
So is that stuffed in your pack and then you're taking it out of your pack when you get to the tree?
Yeah. Yep. So I just have that stuffed inside my pack, and then I'll put like my bibs on or whatever else that I'm going to be putting on, and then I'll climb up, and then I'll usually save like my outerwear jacket to put on till I'm up in the tree, so I don't sweat as I'm going up.
Sure.
But I'll just like vent the bibs and go up the tree.
Cool.
What were those hooks that you mentioned?
Genesis 3D printing. You type that in. It's their website, Genesis 3D printing, and they have the hook there. It's meant specifically for whatever platform you have, or I think they have universal ones. If you type it in and look in their accessories, things like, they have a ton of different options.
So that's just strapping on the back of your saddle when you're actually wearing it, and then you're hooking your platform to it as you're climbing up, so it's easy access.
Yeah, it uses like on my saddle has MOLLE webbing the whole way around it, so that's how like the cis haulers attach. I don't know how the Eberhard hooks up, because I don't have that one. You'd have to look at how that all.
I assume it does. I just placed the order, so we'll find out. Well, dude, my thought was for the sticks. The sticks are the most, because I don't want to have to go back up and down the tree. So even if I have like my current deal. That first of all solves a problem for me. So I'll have my my tether in one of those pouches. In the other, I'll probably do, at least for now, because I don't have a platform, I'll do that ring of steps.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
They're kind of loud, so as long as I can have it tucked in a pouch or Vietnam style over my
ammo belt,
I can I can just have a rope, like a rope in my teeth down to my bow and my bag or whatever. So the last remaining thing is the sticks. I don't want to have to climb back up and down. So if I can stick one from the ground, stick two, I'm just holding it, and then have a stick on either side. I mean, do you think that the hooks are the way to do that?
So it depends on your stick and how much it weighs. Like,
I've got the Lone Wolf Duquestia series.
Okay, those are
14-inch
super light.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you should be able. Honestly, I would try just putting them through the loop on the cis hauler. Like once you cinch it up, putting it in there, because that holds well for me.
Okay.
And I have a couple pounds off each of them, and it works just fine. Most people use like those gear tie things, those
I've seen that.
rubber, but
okay.
So that'll work.
That's
but
a good
the thing is, like, when I used to have like a bow rope, I had like I think Hawk made it, that had like the little twisty thing on the end of it there. It always break off after using it a ton of times. And
Really?
I don't trust those things a lot, so I just use that little rope.
That's a good idea.
Or you could just take paracord and also loop it through that MOLLE webbing and tie it that way. That's another method for being able to do it.
It's an interesting discussion, because I mean, coming from a background of like basically hang and hunt lock-ons all the time, it's trying to figure out which is smoother. And I think we talked about it. It definitely is less weight. I don't know if the weight bothers us as much. It's the bulk.
Yeah, that's almost the only thing. I guess that's kind of my next question is what, how do you decide, or are you exclusively saddle at this point? There's no back and forth.
I've been exclusively saddle. It's not that I have anything against the hang on. It's just what I grab for the most part. Just like the only time that I think that a hang on seems to work better is if I'm in like a hemlock tree or something that has a bunch of branches. You can kind of set it in there and get a little bit easier, I guess, with it. But I've been basically exclusive with the saddles since 2020, exclusively with it.
Interesting. I kind of, you're right, Jeremy. The bulk is kind of the main consideration. The weight is what it is. I mean, it's fine. I will say one other thing, like if I'm trying to look for flaws in a hang on or any kind of a tree stand type of a setup, it's potential noise. Hockey tape, I think there's remedies, obviously, but simply the existence of, buckles on the stands are a big one. So like one thing that's cool about those DeQuistio series sticks that I'm using, and probably there's some other ones. They have I know Muddy's got or had at one time an example of this. It's the Buckleless Method, and so I have
talking about like the rope side.
Yep. So no more buckles on for clanking around, and if you could remove this big aluminum platform from the equation as well, that's obviously an opportunity for clanking. So I see an advantage with a saddle there too. But I'm very much back and forth. I'm definitely more comfortable with the hang on at this point. But I want to get better with the saddle so I can have it as an option.
I think it also comes down to like what you hunt. Ultimately, if you're going to be hiking in and getting back in deep, like every ounce counts in some cases. Versus like if you're parking at the road and walking 150 yards in, like
not for me.
Not a big difference.
Yeah, and so we were talking about not having the buckles. Like, no matter what the attachment is, like I've used a couple sticks in the last few years that have different rope type attachments. That's so much nicer than having any other sort of buckle that has metal on
Absolutely.
it. And those one sticks have this. It's like a figure 8 pattern that you use. It's just dynamite rope that goes around it, very thin. It looks like it shouldn't hold, but it's a lot stronger than even a regular strap.
Yeah.
And then you just run a figure 8 on it and cinch it through, and
I'll be honest, dude,
it's so much quieter.
Those steps that I have came with like webbing. I'm pretty seriously considering just replacing them with like a heavy duty paracord. I think that would do it.
Probably.
I'm sure that would void the warranty, but
I'm sure you've already lost a finger on steps once, at this point. Yeah, I think there's a lot of people that I don't think would ever be able to get used to a saddle. It just, from their style of hunting or even their body type or whatever. Yeah, it's just tough.
Most of our guys can't even climb into my
we space them out too far.
Over 50s complaining about our hang-ons.
Yeah, but ultimately, I think that here's the thing. At the end of the day, there's no doubt in my mind that the most successful hunters are always going to be mobile. However you need to be mobile, doesn't matter to me. Like if you want to hunt a saddle, great. If you want to hunt a lock-on, great. But you have to be mobile. You have to be willing to tear that thing down and put it back up 10 times before you get to the right spot. Because if you're not, if you just glue yourself to one spot all the time, it's probably not going to work out.
Yeah. It's like, so like my I was talking to my dad about it when getting him into saddle hunting was difficult just from the standpoint of he's done it a certain way forever, preset stands, and then he'd have a mobile setup. I think he had a lone wolf stand, some sticks, and then had a climber as well. But I was getting him into the saddle thing. It took a lot of practice, like to shoot off the weak side shot. So basically, if you're facing the tree and you're right-handed, it would be off the right side of the tree. And but once he did it, this year I was talking to him. He's like, I don't think I'm pre-hanging a bunch of stands like I used to. He's like, I don't sit in most of them. He's like, then I end up moving. And last year he was chasing a specific deer that put him, by the time he figured out where he was living at, was in a completely different area basically, and just would hunt out of that saddle all the time. He'd hunt off the ground, find that sign, hang the spot, and ended up shooting the best buck of his life out of it by being able to keep continually moving around.
Yeah.
And I think so. I've talked about this on my podcast a lot. Like at one point when like I first heard like the term mobile hunting, and started hearing everybody like, oh, you can only sit in a tree once, like you got all this stuff. I became a worse hunter when I started doing that because I was like moving around too much in the big woods. These deer there's not that many deer. First of all, there's not like a ton of deer. So you're not like blowing spots out as much as you would in an area where there's a bunch of deer as far as leaving scent down if you pay attention to access. But they also don't come on a pattern like every day. So like like Shirk has the whole 3-day
Yeah.
strategy where he does 3 days in one spot. And I don't have like a specific set days, but there's times where I'll sit 5 days in the same tree.
Yeah.
But it still requires being mobile from the standpoint of finding that spot or being willing to move to that location. And that's just kind of, I don't know. I think for me, there's an up and down on when is being too mobile, but also when's the right time to kind of move on that.
That's a good point.
Yeah, I think it's a hard discussion because I know I've had really good luck being very mobile in that the first time into a spot, I've killed a handful of deer, and it was, I hadn't hunted it. I didn't pre-hang it. I literally went in, hang and hunt, killed a big deer, mature deer. I know we've had discussions of like, how long do you sit in a spot? I kind of grew up with the mindset, like I sat the same spot a whole season when I was growing up hunting, whether it was a permanent stand or a ladder stand or whatever. And then ultimately it was like, okay, like I need to be mobile or at least have some ability to change spots when necessary. And I still to this day think that in some cases, the first time you're in a spot, if you're in the right spot, is the best time. And there's a diminishing return after that. Now, maybe it's not because you're blowing deer out of a spot. Obviously, if you're hunting like a food plot or an ag field and there's deer in that field, the moment you start having to get down and out and are bumping deer, like it's very diminishing at that point. But
yeah,
in a big woods situation, I do think that first time in, if everything is right, which is why we talk about how important these precipitation-based cold fronts are in October. If you know that scrape is hot, the first day after that precip comes through, if you're in that spot, I think that is the best chance you have at killing the buck that is using that scrape. Not saying that you can't kill him after that, but I do think that it declines, and maybe it's a combination of you being there and that front starting to pass through and not having that rain like right in touch with it.
I think mobility, my opinion is that mobility is more important in October than it is in November.
Totally agree with that. That's exactly what I was going to say.
Yeah.
I move around way more in October than I do in November. And I think it comes down to a lot of the confidence that you have too. Like I'm not going to sit in a spot that I don't have confidence in for 4 or 5 days,
right,
versus if you know that, okay, this is a rut funnel, I just need to be patient.
Well, I think that really reinforces what we've said previously, is that November is, if you can't beat a good spot.
It's just the spot.
Yeah. And to what you're saying right there about the diminishing return,
I'm hunting hot scrapes in October.
Yeah. Every spot is different. And if you could, like, an example would be that spot that I found this year.
That
pinch. Mm-hmm. I think you could hunt that stand every single day in November, and you will and could kill multiple mature deer, and I don't think it would ever get worse as long as you have a west-southwest wind.
Yes.
Because the access is so bulletproof, you're not walking through anything, and it's just the spot.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they're out there. That's what November's,
I have
for.
I have not permanent, but like
I'm gonna hang a permanent stand in there Thursday.
I put sets in there that I might not hunt until Halloween week.
Yeah.
But after that, it could be, you could, as long as the wind's right, you could sit it every day.
Yeah.
But before then, between now, so it's the 11th and 28th, 29th of October, I'm trying to be mobile on scrapes.
100%.
Yeah.
I think that's how you kill them.
I agree with you. I agree with you, and I think I have a similar outlook, I guess, as far as that goes. Besides the fact that, like, in later October, I'll sit a specific scrape that's hot for 2 or 3 days versus just one time.
Yeah.
Just from the standpoint of it's a cycle kind of that they're coming through and potentially, working that. But like those rut funnels, like there's certain spots I have, like this one creek bottom spot that I've shot a few deer out of. I haven't hunted it in probably 3 or 4 years, but I'm going to revisit it. It's just a perfect funnel where you got beaver pond just down below, like my tree's basically right on the edge of it. So as the thermals come down that creek, it blows in, hits that beaver pond, and your air rises, and it's like a bulletproof wind setup. But all the deer like to cross there or run the ridges on either side of it. And a lot of times that bottom has thick cover and doe's bed down inside it, right down in the bottom. So the deer are always cruising it. They'll come from miles away. But like I've learned that that spot doesn't get good until at least November 4th.
Yeah.
Anytime before that, you're basically wasting time sitting in that tree. And I really like it from like the 8th through the 11th.
Mm-hmm. Heck yeah. That's the hardest part about October is knowing that you have those spots that are go-tos. And it's like, in that sense, it almost seems like October's kind of if you have those spots like in November, you know, I think in the back of our minds, you've got that confidence that like, I'm going to get it done out of one of those spots eventually. But there's deer right now that seem to be on patterns in October that I should be chasing. There's no reason not to go after
and I
them.
think that's where, like, and it's going to vary by hunter. Like, I am very confident between the 16th or 17th of October and Halloween. Like, I feel like I'm ready for it. I feel like I have time. I feel like I can be very calculated in how I attack.
That's because you're good at reading sign.
But then
that's what October is.
Once November hits, I feel scattered.
Because you don't have those spots.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah.
Right?
I feel
We're getting it
scattered. I
figured
feel
out
like
here.
I'm chasing my tail. They're chasing and I'm chasing
well,
at the same
and
time.
I don't know. Maybe those spots are, I'm saying this with little experience in the big woods. Maybe those spots are harder to find in the big woods.
They are. I mean, when you find one, like Beau was just describing, you know it. Like, and you hold on to that damn thing. Even if you don't hunt it for 3 or 4 years, I guarantee he could go right back to that spot this year and he'd be in them.
I shouldn't say just.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, Beau.
No, I was just going to say the only thing that changes like those spots is when they do log. Like that's like when you're talking about like annual data,
changes.
like as soon as they start changing that landscape, that will definitely fluctuate things and change it. And that's when spots go hot or cold. But, you know, we were talking about scrapes earlier. There's spots that I know of that there's been a scrape there for at least 15 years that the tree, and the one, this is a spot of my dad's. It was just this amazing spot where there was a hemlock and there was like 5 scrapes the whole way around it. It's just giant, like the things you dream of. Well, that tree actually died and blew down, and then they moved to the next one.
Wow.
And they started it again. It's just like you find those spots, and they're very, very difficult to come by. I mean, I have so many different locations that I go to and run cameras and scout in the spring, and you know, so every spring I set a goal of at least hiking 200 miles. That's what my goal is, to cover and find areas and look, and to find 1 or 2 of those spots and a spring scouting season is good. Like, it's not easy to come by, but when you see them, it's just like the light bulb goes off and you instantly get all hot and bothered and you're worked up over it.
Well, dude, that's what we're looking for. I mean, all this walking, I'm not at 200 miles, but in the last 2 weeks, I mean, it's real time. What I'm looking for is to run into, not necessarily that, but recent sign. You know, I'm trying to find rubs within the last 2 days, scrapes that have been recently opened up, and you can be effective on those spots in the coming 2 weeks.
Well, I was going to ask Beau, so you talk about that in the springtime, which we spend a lot of time, whether we're shed hunting or just scouting in the spring. How about now? I mean, you know, you hear a lot of guys talk about their areas and say like, you know, I just stay out of them. To be honest, and maybe I screw it up more than I do good, but like right now is one of my favorite times to get into the big woods and look for sign and to find areas and potentially even say, hey, you know, I'm going to set up a camera here. I'm going to hunt here. Are you in some of your areas now if you're not hunting, or are you just kind of letting them be?
Yeah, I'm in them. Like, things are still, even though like some things are the same, there's still so much changing. So like, I'm way behind on where I normally would be at this time of year, because I've been gone for the last like 6 weeks between being out west and hunting some different states, and I was like, I feel scattered right now because normally I'm in the woods and I spend most of October on the ground scouting more so than I am in the tree until I find that hot sign, and I was just, you know, planning on it possibly even this afternoon, getting out and going to one of my spots and just hitting cameras, and then basically hitting the cameras is me walking through and scouting as I'm going and trying to see what's going on now, what things are changing. You know, by now the black cherries are all scooped up off the ground most likely, so there's not that food source. It's more the browse. It's more I'm getting ready for, as those bucks are starting to check those doe bedding areas, trying to see where does are. I hope I bump does, to be honest, because that lets me know that there's, you know, where there's some of the doe groups are. By the time I'd actually hunt some of those spots, it'll be fine. But I love being out in October, like kind of confirming what I found in the spring, if not, you know, adjusting to it. So I'm a big fan of that.
That's so valuable, man. Dude, I don't know what exactly has led to this. I think us mule deer hunting together has kind of helped me with that thought process of realizing how valuable time in the truck, or translated to whitetail hunting, just boots on the ground
Mhm.
is. And I've probably hunted less this October, maybe than ever before.
Sure.
But I feel like my time has been so much more effective because I'm scouting.
Well,
Yeah, it's easy. I've done it. Not that they were wasted, but it's easy to waste time. Think about 4 hours that it takes to sit in a tree stand one night when you could be out in the truck or scouting an area for sign.
Well, we talked about this all the time. Like, I may not actually sit or hunt till 18th to the 20th of October, but from September 1 on, I'm hunting. I'm just on the ground scouting. I'm putting up cameras. I'm reading sign. I'm moving. Like, I may not ever take a bow to the woods to me, until that last 10 days of October. But trust me, I mean, I'm hunting every bit up until that. It's just all intel, planning, and then the execution comes. And there's plenty of guys that will hunt their balls off all of October, and they're not doing themselves any favors. They're just putting in pressure. They don't even know what they're hunting. They don't even know what the area is producing. And they're just like, this looks good, and they set up and they just hunt. And I'm not saying that that's wrong for them, but if they're truly trying to be successful, they'd probably be better sacrificing some of those hunts for scouting days.
That's hard to do too, man.
I know it is. And listen, I'm the first with it, the way it's been the last few weeks, especially this year in October. Like, dude, we've had some amazing weather to kick off October, and it's been hard to restrain myself to not be out, but I know where I'm going. Like, it's not ready. Like, it's not time to be in there. I'm just going to be in there laying down scent, causing a disturbance. Maybe I come across the buck I want, but doubtful. That's just it.
Yeah. It's for me. I used to get anxiety if I wasn't in the tree. Like, I felt like I was wasting time.
Yeah, man.
And now it's like
I'm the other way around.
not that
now.
way. Yeah, I was just in West Virginia for 3 days, and I never climbed in the tree because I didn't find anything hot that I was like I wanted to hunt right now. But I was like, okay, I found a bunch of different does where the does are at. I didn't see any bucks, but like, it's like, okay, I found the does. That when I come back in November, this is going to be really good. I got cameras set up,
man.
Focusing on, like for me, I've always been more of a late October, November hunter. That's when I always took vacation to work. So I always set my cameras based on that. Like, even when I set them up in the summer, if I know I'm not going to get back to that area, I'll set them up in areas that I'm planning for scrape activity, like, because that's when I'm going to be hunting. And that's when intel is more important to me. If I'm able to get back to it and move them around, that's a different story. But like, I focus on, my strengths, on where I'm at. Have been really trying to learn to see if I can, be better in earlier October and mid-October. But at the same time, it's like, if you want to be successful, you got to focus on your strengths and when you think it's going to be the best time to hunt those areas and scout it. So that's kind of been my strategy, is just moving around, scouting, and that's what I'm hoping by the time this cold front hits on Thursday, that I gotta, I have a solid spot that I either found, or also I've been going. Last night I was up till like 1 o'clock in the morning going through trail camera pictures, and I keep a spreadsheet of like target bucks and like all the weather data that's with it from previous years, and trying to see when certain scrapes and stuff are getting hot in this period around like this cold front that's about to hit. So I have a plan to go in and be able to hunt that where I feel confident in it versus just going out to sit.
It's so important, man. I mean, again, if you only have the weekends to hunt, and let's say you're strapped on vacation, like, go hunt, like, enjoy it, be in the stand, like, just get out. But if you're trying to be calculated on this, especially if you're trying to hunt a specific deer or a specific quality of deer, there's nothing better than the ability to be patient, spend time scouting, and wait for those right days. And, sometimes, you wait till the end of October, and before you know it, it's November 1, and you're like, man, like, it just didn't set up right, and that you're going to have that. And that's when you're going to have to pivot to those rut spots. But, if you rush, I think that some of the mistakes where some of these bucks survive multiple years is because people will rush their movements in October to try to get in position to kill these deer. And it's not time.
Yeah.
Well, I was talking, so like my family is just big deer hunting family, and like and everyone, takes off their vacation first 2 weeks in November, basically. And that's when they go out. But like, I was talking to my uncle the other day, and he's like, it's been 10 years since I've sat in a tree until before the 20 something of October. He's just out scouting. He doesn't even carry his bow. He's just out, getting ready, and he's successful every year during that time frame. But he just realized that and was like, I have my time's better spent scouting. I see so many people that burn themselves out too early.
Yeah.
Every chance after work, they're out sitting in a tree. And again, I'm not saying that that's wrong. I'm just saying that, if that's what you enjoy, that's awesome. But if you're looking at straight odds of success, kind of know what you're playing with. And I think that'll help you. I mean, the season's long. You can get burned out pretty quick if you're constantly, just
I think that's, yeah.
hitting
And I
in the
mean,
tree.
we talked about it earlier. Like I'm almost, because I felt like unlike where you were just describing, Beau, like I feel like I've been at it because we didn't go out west this year. I didn't for September, to where like I'm almost antsy now where I'm like, man, I'm not seeing the deer that I thought I was going to see. Like these scrapes aren't getting hit. And then I check my watch and it's like, it's October. 7th. Yeah. It's the 11th now, where I feel like it's like the 20s. Like I feel the pressure, dude, but it's not there yet.
I think, whatever, growing up or like as a teenager or like early in my 20s, I was like, I had the mindset I think that a lot of guys probably still have. It's like they go to a spot and they're just, as long as they're hunting, it's like, hey, I'm hunting, and like there's a chance. Like you can't kill it from the couch mentality. But call it the pessimist or the realist. Is like I've realized over the years that especially in October, anything before the rut, it's like, dude, if they're not there, they're not there, and there's no point just going and sitting in the woods to not see something. That time would be way better spent, like we've been beaten into the ground here scouting. And so at some point here, frankly, this year may be the first time that I did hunt twice, and once there was kind of a chance. It was more of an observation sit than anything. But the first one was I wasted it. I was like, dude, me wanting to hunt, I think got the best of it. There's no point in me sitting here. I'm not gonna see anything. Yes, there's always a chance. But I've just realized that there are so many areas that they are not, and it really takes the time to figure out, the few locations that they are. And that you may or may not have some opportunities to take advantage before the end of October. And then once that passes, we're back to good spots, getting your rut spots.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's kind of sorry, go ahead.
No, it's and like also like for me, it's like, all right, if I have a good inclination that I have a chance at a deer in October, 100% I'm going to hunt, like but for me, it's a lot harder to find those where I feel that confident in it in October, unless there's, like last year, I killed my deer opening day, and that was something I had a lot of confidence in that spot, in that location to be able to do that. But that's not the regular. That's not normal to have that unless I have like a food source and I have data that's like, okay, all right, we have a 20-degree temperature drop, and this is the only place I think they could be eating, and blah blah blah. There's a lot of situations there, but I just, man, I think 3 hours in the woods scouting, you can get so much covered. There's so much you can get done in 3 hours versus sitting in a tree.
Yeah, that's it, man.
Dude, even from a truck too, like maybe this is specific to my situation because we have so much farm ground and so little wood blocks. Like, man, I can get a lot done from the truck with really good binoculars. Like, I mean, I can scout rubs and stuff, 50, 100 yards down in the woods. I can see that stuff. I'm just observing all of the terrain. I'm looking at bedding areas from a distance. I can see scrapes from 200 yards away. And just to put all those pieces together from the truck, first of all, keeps my presence and pressure out of the woods, but it's, I can cover ground quickly that way too.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in the big woods, like one of the things in Pennsylvania, it's legal during archery season to be able to spotlight.
Yeah.
And you can drive some of these roads and spotlight newer clear cuts that are open a little bit more, but still have grasses and stuff coming up that you can see deer in. And you can gain a lot of intel that way. Not necessarily where they're going to be in the day, but it gives you intel like, okay, there's a deer. He's coming from within X amount of distance of this at some point. And it just gives you that reassurance. I love driving around at night and doing. I haven't done that at all this year yet, but that's something I've used in the past that I think has been really helpful.
Man, I'd like to do that this year. I've been spotlighting in years.
Oh, dude, I take the kids every year.
I grew up
just
doing
because
it
that's
all the
how.
time.
Yeah, I grew up. But like to what Beau's point is, like I always try to pinpoint maybe those private pasture fields or whatever's bumping up right against the big public or something that I'm hunting. And, hit that 9-10 time period. And if they're out there feeding, that they're coming from usually one of those big wood blocks. And then you can at least start to break that down and dissect that area to understand where they might be coming. You get feed in. I mean, listen, anymore, and I've done it for probably the last 15 years, is you give me a map of an area, which Shirk actually gave me my area for when we go to start looking at for my dad and I.
Cool.
You're in a different area.
Okay.
But I'm already you're not in my
You
area.
wait for the next group.
You wait, next bus.
You come with me. You wait for the next group. No, you wait for the next group.
But I've already started taking that map and he's already scouted that area, but just from topographical features and Google Earth and everything else, I'm like, okay, this, and this, at some point I'm going to put feet in these areas because, I think that's probably where I'm going to find, scrapes along the edges, or he's going to be working the downwind side of this bedding. And you may deal with 100,000 acres, but ultimately take a map and you can break down. Once you start to understand how to read a map, you can pretty much pinpoint some spots you need to focus your foot time on, basically.
Yeah. Reading the map is such a underutilized thing. Like, it seems so simple, like topo lines and stuff are simple, but like I look at maps, like I like looking at like 10-foot contours, like small contours. You can find them little tiny breaks and things that deer might travel through. And like when I'm looking at a big area, you say 100,000 acres, it's like, all right, the best odds for me is going to have a lot of different vegetation and also terrain. It's like you get all that stuff combined. All right, you really narrowed things down a lot. At one point I had tried to hunt a different area in Pennsylvania that was just like as remote as you possibly could be, but it was very much the same vegetation throughout, like just giant, big timbered ridges, not a lot of browse, not a lot of clear cuts, all that stuff. And I was thinking I was going to find these just monarch 8-year-old deer everywhere. And I found some old deer, but they didn't have much for antler size or anything because they didn't have the food that was there. So like there's things that I've picked up over the years, and one of them is just like that diversity of all that different stuff that's there. It's like that they can have everything in one location.
Yep.
I've never really thought about it this way until just now when we're talking. It's kind of a lot like reading a stream. Like when you're
absolutely.
As you're fishing, like you're looking for
find those eddy pools,
eddies and pools. You're not just throwing
just
throwing it everywhere. I think, but woods are big. It's so big. It's hard to do that. A map kind of puts it in front of you in the same perspective where you can.
Well, you can't.
You
don't have the especially if you're a normal person working a job and everything. You don't have the time to go out there and scout 100,000 acres. In a given year, even if you're talking about the spring before the season, you're going to pick 4 or 5 areas that you're going to get boots on the ground and make 8 to 10 mile loops. And if you don't narrow those down from a map, you're missing out because it's just going to be random, dartboard type luck. If you haven't said, okay, here's a clear cut, here's the contours that are going to pinch them down, here's the downwind side of a bedding area. I'm going to find scrapes and rubs along that line. And if you're not looking at it that way, to at least give yourself several blocks to say, I'm going to focus my time in these areas, you're going to be so scattered that, odds are you're never going to find a good spot to even hunt the next year.
Yeah. Oh, you hit the nail on the head there. And it's like, so like if I look at an area that has a big clear cut in it, it's like, all right, I'm not going to have time to walk through that entire clear cut in the spring. But if I walk the edges, I'll find a big rub to know that there's a big deer that's living in there. Man. And then I can dissect more if I want to, or like focus more on that specific spot. But it's like, how can I hit those high priority spots to let me know that what I'm looking for is there, and then kind of go from there, but not wasting time just, covering. And that's why, like I always in the spring, it's like this whole balance of the whole shed hunting versus scouting thing, which I think are two different animals, to be honest. And like I focus on the scouting section more than anything, and just trying to maximize my time, I guess.
Well, yeah, sure. I mean, it's cool. It obviously you find a big shed, like that's awesome. But ultimately, like, and it doesn't matter if you're on public or private. We talked about this with the farm that I got in Ohio. Like I walked that farm November 6th or 7th last year. And so like when these scrapes are busted wide open all through the property, like I know next year, which is now this year, like they're going to be busted wide open again. There's going to be bucks on that property. There's going to be activity on that property. It's the same way if I'm scouting in the springtime. Like if I find, scrapes and old rubs through an area, I can bet that the following year during that same time frame, they're going to be laying down scrapes and rubs again. So maybe I don't find the shed because that deer's a mile over on a crop field off of the public land. But come the following year, during that time frame where he's laying down scrapes and rubs, he's probably, or a deer of similar quality is going to be through that area. And that's what you're trying to do. You gotta function on trends over like specifics, especially the bigger the property.
Oh yeah, totally. Like there's a specific deer I've been hunting for 3 years now, and I had an opportunity at him in 2020 and couldn't get a shot off. But anyways, I can never figure him out in early October. And I was like really worried about that. Like I was stressing about that this year. Like I need to figure this out. And I'm like, but why?
Mm-hmm.
Why don't I focus on like, there's not really a need for me to do that. One, haven't even been around for early October, but It's like, all right, you've learned certain trends of him in late October and November. Why don't you focus on that and how to maximize those opportunities? And that's where, our brains can overthink some of these things and overcomplicate it. I do it to myself constantly.
Well, dude, that's
constant
that's
talking to myself in the mirror about it.
That self-restraint is very tough. Like when it doesn't matter where you're hunting. If you start getting a big buck on camera, it doesn't matter if it's in the middle of the night, the self-restraint not to go in there, to hold back and to not hunt that deer until the time's ready is very tough. And you put that on public land when the other thoughts are like, well, maybe somebody else has them or knows he's there and they're going to get in there and hunt. Like, I get it. It's a battle back and forth in your own brain, but ultimately you've got to put everything in your favor if you're going to try to kill a big mature buck on deep public land. And the odds are you're going to have to narrow that down to a couple very specific days between October 15th and probably November 15th. And that's what it's going to come down to. And you may want to go in there October 5th to kill him, or you may want to go in there October 10th to kill him. But if it's not set up right, you're either blowing a day or you're going to blow your chance at him. You talked about that big 8-point. Like, we didn't really know that's how it was going to pan out. But, I mean, that deer catching your wind could throw him off in the future. We don't know.
Yeah.
And so you got to make those approaches very specific. And it sucks, man, because I can remember like sleepless nights the day before the bow opener. Like I couldn't wait to be in my stand opening day just because it was hunting season. Like I'm ready to get out. Now anymore, it's like I don't even like get worked up until I know that buck that I'm after is showing up consistently. And really the week before, I'm just strategizing like, hey, this is the day I'm going to go in there and kill him.
Yeah. Now there's an example from 2017. So there was a deer. I had camera soaked all year in a new area in 2016. I never pulled it until like March, and I had like a once in a lifetime type Pennsylvania deer on this camera, but he was only there one day in daylight and like October 22nd during a cold front. He was moving out, and then he came back through in the night, and he had this big drop tine coming off one side and a big, basically double kicker coming off his G2 on the other side. Just giant deer. And so that spring I went in, I was trying to figure him out. And I ended up finding the spot 1.5 miles away that was in this creek bottom. There's beaver pond. There's just giant scrape and there's big rub that led into this thick, just nasty stuff. And I was like, all right, I'm going to put a camera here and see what, if this is potentially his area. This has the best chance that I've seen. Well, around October 15th, he showed up on that camera. I went in like the 20th and checked it, and he was like there relatively regularly, going into this spot to bed in the morning and coming out. I was like, I've never seen a deer that, one, this big, and two, this patternable. But it was like, it was still darkness that he was moving, but it was like not far off. So I knew he wasn't bedding far. And then October 25th, we had like a 25-degree temperature drop, and my ex-girlfriend actually went in and hunted it and shot that deer because he was coming back to bed at 178 inches.
Holy Jesus.
Yeah. And
Is
it was
that
just
why
like,
she's your ex now?
But,
You know what? We're done.
You know what? Hey,
we won't get into that. But that's one of those things where like, it was like when he first started showing up, like you want to hunt him right now because it's like, holy cow, like at any point he can make a bad decision. And if you're looking at it logically, it's like, okay, you need something that's going to get him to break that pattern a little bit. And that October 25th, that cold front coming in just like I mean, it was like 9 o'clock in the morning. He was coming back to bed. So it was,
Well, you have to look at
later in the morning.
those time frames, October 15th to probably Halloween in most of the Midwest and the Northeast. They're at some point towards the latter end of that period, they're going to break their pattern, right? The first does are going to come into estrus and shit's just going to go crazy. But for the most part, it will be the same pattern. What will change is he will show up during hunting hours. So he's still going to do the same routine. And it's just you're looking for the break to where he breaks his time frame, not his pattern, not his location, but his time frame break. Versus in the rut, we're looking for him to break a pattern. We're looking for him to get pulled through, checking a doe bedding area where he's not been in the last 3 weeks.
I think that's where that annual data is super valuable. Because if you can, I describe it like loops, and I'm sure it does vary, but I think that these deer generally have
absolutely
a course of travel that, generally every year they kind of use the same. And if it's like, right now, if you haven't seen a buck show up in a certain area, but that it's a part of his loop,
it's just a matter of time.
You can watch the weather and kind of just and wait for it. And as long as you're there, he's going to get on it at some point.
That's it. Yeah. The big breaks that I see is
the 17th and 18th, which unfortunately I'm fairly tied up on those days this year. At one spot specifically, the pinch, every single year, the biggest buck in that area has been in there on that scrape or using that part of the loop. And it's just not like I'll have data in there.
Mine's
that
been
day,
23, 24, 25. And I've killed that deer on the 23rd. I killed this deer, I think, on the 25th.
Yeah.
Like that's in Pennsylvania, at least. Those are my days that I know that if we get the right weather, a big mature buck could die if he's there.
Well, dude, that's where just time spent year after year learning an area. That's where that's so valuable because it's like in the back of your mind, whether it was summer pictures or sheds that you found or spring scouting that you did or encounters you had in the fall, you kind of put all the pieces together and you start to understand a property just as good as. Maybe not just as good as, but damn close to as good as a big buck.
You gotta know it almost as well as he does.
Yeah.
So
and that's like it. I don't care how good of a hunter you are or you think you are. You need time. Like you need time to understand an area because every area has its own dynamics and like figuring out how they're doing that and like that's I always think it takes me 3 years to fully know an area. Like when I say fully know, I don't know everything, but like as far as like feel really confident and going into an area, having that trail camera data. I mean, scrapes are what I run most of my cameras on, but I've also I'd start doing some testing on signpost rubs, which are rare to find, but when I do find those, man, they're really good. Like I have one right now that I'm really mad because my cell camera is not sending me photos. It's like died 2 weeks ago and I haven't been able to get in there, but I need but that spot is like, like that's a travel spot. Like not that those bucks won't always hit that. There was a buck in there that he ended up getting killed last year that every time I would spray that signpost rub with forehead gland scent and within 24 hours, he would just destroy that tree no matter what. One time it was an hour after I left and it was during hunting hours. Yeah. And like, he just loved doing that. But all the other deer, like they use that as kind of like a communication, almost like a scrape. They'll travel next to it and kind of just, either sniff it or just kind of walk past it. But that was something where I've learned for annual patterns or those signpost rubs.
It's so cool, like all this sign and stuff that we're talking about. It almost like unveils like the underworld of the mature bucks.
It does.
And it's like,
some
people describe it like just being able to think like a big buck thinks. And I agree, but it takes multiple years in some cases, or just whatever it is that ultimately like gives you that peephole into that world. It's like, dude, once you realize it, you're like, oh, for me, like in the area that I hunt there, it's the fact that those mature bucks are using bottoms. And like for the longest time, I didn't look at the property that way. I just was like, well, food plot here, ridge here. I know that winds are not desirable, and I know we can wrap it up here. When I encountered a few mature bucks using those bottoms and I started to understand that they were bedding in the bottoms because the wind would swirl there, the entire property looked totally different to me. And all of a sudden, all of these saddles, all of these major drainages that would connect in certain areas started to make sense. And all the encounters, the trail camera pictures that I had in certain areas, like all of a sudden I kind of understood why.
Started to align.
I was like, oh.
It is an art, though. I mean, you know, like growing up, my dad was really good at reading sign, but because like, you know, deer hunting was just so different in like the 80s and 90s in Pennsylvania. I mean, people were killing 3-inch
It was all
spikes
speculation.
and stuff.
You had no trail camera pictures to prove it.
Yeah, and so like you could read sign and understand that there was a buck in the area and stuff, but you couldn't put there was missing gaps of information.
Yeah, huge.
Today's technology, and I know people will argue and say, well, it's too much. Maybe in some cases, I get it. Like, I mean, cell cameras kill big bucks. But to be able to have those gaps now filled, like it's an amazing story that you can put together. And listen, it doesn't always end in the happy ending that you kill the buck, right? I mean, that's why there's multiple years of data on a lot of these deer. But it allows you to understand what that deer goes through. And to me, that's why, like, I won't go and hunt mature deer in an area. I will hunt a mature buck. Like, I am targeting a specific deer when I go into an area. And it's for that reason, is I'm analyzing his data to kill him. Now, maybe by chance another mature buck shows up and I kill that deer, but I'm in there after a specific deer.
Well, do you think about back in the day, it would like this. The only story that you heard was, Sarah was sitting on his crank on the thing, and there he was. There was a giant buck. And I had seen some rubs, and that's it. That's all that ever existed. Now you have guys who have known these deer for 2, 3, 4, or 5 years, whatever it is, and they've got all of this trail camera data to back it up. They've got all, we're more efficient as hunters because of that, and so now you've got stories that are multiple years long. Way more of it is written. There's obviously still so much that we don't know what these, pictures only tell so much of the story, but, man, it's cool. That's one pro, I think, for the trail cameras or cell cameras, is that you now have this much more access to that underworld of mature bucks story that I think we're all like after.
Oh yeah, reading the behavior, like when you have video mode, is like changed my world. Like seeing, like you can tell like a buck's personality almost from having it on video and seeing how he reacts when he comes into a scrape.
You know, if he'll respond to a snort wheeze or if he's going to be cowering off from it. That's huge to understand. Oh my gosh, yeah. And like what you just said was like exactly how I look at when I hunt one deer. Yes.
But I'll shoot other deer.
Absolutely.
And normally when I'm hunting one deer, I get opportunities because mature deer like certain areas, and I might not see many deer in that spot because it's some places I'm hunting I can see 15 yards at most. It's like just thick where they're living at. But like it's just I hunt one deer and then usually have an opportunity at another one per se. I'm not at the point in my hunting career where I feel like I'm a one or nothing type of deal. Maybe I'll get there, but I'm not there right now. I tried it once and it wasn't any fun.
I'm not there either. Yeah, I'm an opportunist for sure.
Yeah. That's cool, man. Well, listen, Beau, we appreciate you coming on, man. And let's make sure we circle back up maybe towards the end of the year.
I'll touch base next week.
Yeah.
As we're heading up past you, I'll shoot you text. We'll see if we can link up. I'd
love to get you back on and kind of recap this. These next few weeks in Pennsylvania and most states are freaking awesome. I mean, it's what we live for. And, definitely kind of hear how the story develops for you. And yeah, man, we appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, well, you guys, once you hunt with Shirk up there, I want to get you guys on my podcast and talk about kind of how what this places that you hunt versus this, and then seeing just what some of the similarities, what you saw, your experiences.
It'll be
I think it would be
maybe if we kill one, we'll swing by on the way out.
We're gonna be throwing the kitchen sink at them when we get up there for sure. So
cool. You kill one, you stop on the way by. We'll have some drinks and we'll do it right in person there.
Dude. Well, dude, drop for us where people can find you. Like, where can we find your podcast? Where can we follow you?
Yeah, East Meets West Hunt. You search that anywhere in any of the podcast places, you'll find that. YouTube is just under my personal name, Beau Martonik. EastMeetsWestHunt.com, Instagram, Facebook, Go Wild, all those places. Just type in either of those and you'll find my stuff there. But active mostly the podcast, YouTube, social media.
Right on.
So.
Awesome, man. Well, we appreciate it, brother. Thanks for coming on, and we'll definitely be circling up with you soon.
Sounds good. Thanks, guys.
Cool. There's Beau.
Heck yeah.
eats.
Nice to have a local guy here, man.
Well, I think what's cool
PA
is,
brotherships are important.
well, what's neat is like, we've started to form relationships. Obviously, with Steve Shirk, we're going to hunt with him here in the next week.
Dude, do you know what's funny? Not to interrupt. I'm sorry. I just
No, you're
interrupted.
fine.
My wife yells at me all the time for that. You know who? I think you stepped away for a minute. Do you know who? Beau was like, dude, you guys need to have on. Who are we having on Thursday? Who are we trying to? John Stewart.
Oh, Johnny
He's
Stewart.
like, you know who you guys need to have on soon is John Stewart. And I was like, yeah, he's coming on Thursday. He's like, you're kidding.
Yeah.
Which I think we were gonna have to reschedule.
Because I think
don't know if
he's
it's gonna work
is he a
out.
PA guy as
Yeah,
well?
yeah.
We've got a kind of a string here, not to bias the PA guys, but we've got a string here of those. John Stewart's one. Jake Belinda is another one.
Mm-hmm.
That'll
Jake's
be
from
on.
PA?
Yeah, Jake's a PA
Oh,
guy.
wow.
Yeah.
We really got a string of them.
Yeah.
We'll probably have Shirk on after the hunt.
Yeah. Yep. Sharking off. So yeah, it was cool with Beau because we've got similar strategies there. It's interesting to hear his pool. If you haven't yet, I did it this morning. I think I've seen him just in kind of passing, but if you haven't yet, you should check out Beau's East Meets West YouTube channel. He's got some really cool footage of like his hunt from 21. They did like a back. No, I wouldn't say a backcountry, but like a deep PA woods camp, like deer hunt too.
Yeah.
It's just some cool, like nostalgic type stuff. And you can definitely tell the guy, like he puts in a lot of effort around his planning and his execution into those. Cause I mean, dude, they're packing in like, like not a wall tent, but like a teepee tent and like a wood burner inside of it. And I mean, it's legit stuff.
Yeah.
So, but I think again, Beau kind of shares that like really passion for like, I mean, dude, just finding these big, I mean, we're at that time, like finding these big bucks and like trying to like just outcompete them in their own space is just, that's freaking awesome.
Yeah, dude. I mean, I speak for myself, I guess, because, he and you have got a little more experience in Pennsylvania, tracking these things down. But like, dude, I mean, there's a lot, I think that we can learn from a guy like that who spends time in a state that's, I don't know. There's probably states that are harder to hunt, but it's like, man, there are some good deer here.
And it's difficult.
Did you hear him say his ex-girlfriend shot a 187? Did I hear that right?
Yeah.
178?
78.
Okay. Still.
Giant. Well, I was just looking. Somebody killed, you saw that Indiana County buck that was in the group text. Did you see that one?
I don't know. I don't look at group text.
186.
Oh, yeah.
County.
I did see that.
Somebody else posted one somewhere up northwest, 195.
When I was just down at the processor there, the guy showed me a picture of like a for sure 190, and it's down near a power plant.
Yeah,
whose name shall remain nameless.
And we know. Yeah, man, they're here. I do think it's
one got hit on the road, dude. It was like a 190 something right down there.
See one, and that's where like. I think states like Pennsylvania, New York, Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota, like all these states get like kind of slung under the rug at least from like, oh, there's so many hunters, everybody kills everything.
I've done it. I'm guilty of that.
Yeah, me too. There's some giants in this state. Yeah. There's giants in, I think every state has giants. I think that even when you get into like the Upper Peninsula of Michigan or Wisconsin, dude, some of those like desolate areas, there's giants that live up there. People may not see them, and they very rarely get killed, but they're up there. And you just have to hunt your balls off to find them and maybe get a shot at them if you're lucky.
It's tough.
And we're going to do the same thing. I mean, dude, we're hunting like hundreds of thousands of acres of the Allegheny National Forest with Shirk. There are a couple giants in there. There may be deer that show up that he's never seen, we've never seen. Like
we are going to be full on recon mode, though. Like
oh, yeah.
I'm jacked. Just about a PA big woods. Dude, I don't know how many years it's been since I hunted Pennsylvania. It's been a long time.
Yeah. There's giants.
Years and years. It's been multiple years.
There's big deer up in there. And I mean, yeah, you just got to work for them and you got to read sign. That's cool. It's a cool thing because it takes you back to like reading sign, following deer. You're in an area that's basically we're going to be dropped in an area on Wednesday. And by Thursday morning, we're hunting it. And by Saturday, we're done. So you got 3 days to learn it, execute, and try to kill one.
I've been big on that on the sign here this year. I think in the past, like I've fallen. We probably all have a little bit, prey or victim to like the trail camera.
Just camera. Camera data.
Just data. And it's like, man, in a state like Ohio, it's like you can dump a corn pile or you can make a mock scrape. And, those things are super valuable for inventorying deer. But like there's just something to reading real deer sign, that's been laid and interpreting that and trying to make a strategy around that. I've been doing a lot of that here this past week. I've spent a lot more time scouting than actually hunting, and it's going to pay off.
What I think's so weird about it is that these guys who are staying, and I get why, but the guys who are like completely staying off a property or out of an area, I think are missing out on opportunities to narrow it in. You've got two different camps of guys. You got guys who are just uber conservative, like just don't go on it, don't be near it, don't do anything until the time's right. Who probably are relying on trail cameras too much.
That's the Bill Winke model.
Then you've got the other guys who are like balls to the wall, like just push it, just go, just get in there and just hunt them and kill them.
That's the Andre DeQuistio model.
And there's a happy medium in there to where you hunt it right, but you also are aggressive.
Well, I think every situation is different.
It is.
And so
every deer is a little bit different.
The trick, I think, is in reading the situation and applying the strategy that's going to get the deer killed.
Well, and I do think that it is very much you need to be there at the right time. Like, you have to wait for the right time to go after them. But when it's time, if you're conservative, I think you miss opportunities.
100%.
And when that converges, it's full mast.
Right on. Well, let's get after him.
All right. Well, we will text talk to you guys next week.
Whatever. We're hunting.
Yeah, we're hunting. It's October. Let's go.
Later.
Take me